The Age of Ultron had introduced a new range of characters to the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the time, and although the film was considered the most controversial out of the original Avengers movies within Marvel Studios, certain details that emerged through the final results of the film were debatable. But the speculative scenario is this: why was Quicksilver killed off so needlessly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Pietro Maximoff was technically introduced during the mid-credits scene in The Winter Soldier as being affiliated with Hydra, but there was not much else in terms of a focus. Even at that particular time, his potential was severely underestimated. From information now known, popular opinion held Pietro to be somewhat positively portrayed in the Age of Ultron, with a minor backstory on even desiring to become an Avenger, as the character was now infamously killed off towards the end of the film. Casual movie audiences, as well as readers of Marvel Comics, were equally gobsmacked to see Quicksilver killed off in that particular way that he was. Pietro's death was one of the most shocking events in Age of Ultron, and was often considered to be one of the most infamous events that had ever occurred in the original Marvel Cinematic Universe. But theories for why Quicksilver died have been proposed. Joss Whedon was the screenwriter for Age of Ultron, and he specifically wanted to have one of the Avengers killed off in the film to give the Marvel Cinematic Universe a bit of depth, with the various heroes or heroines being considered Avengers, and that the ultimate sacrifice could be needed at any time by any one of them. Sources mention that Joss Whedon originally had Hawkeye to die, but through development of the film he later had Pietro to die instead. Joss Whedon further claimed that he had scripted, wrote, and shot an alternate take for the film where Quicksilver lives, just in case Marvel Studios had plans to use the character in the future, but this did not occur for unknown reasons. The film rights pertaining to the X-Men were held in part by 20th Century Fox at that time, and the studio had made their own films of related characters. Despite the varying quality of the movies, the characters were considered profitable, and Marvel Studios were neutral about using contested characters, so the unclear legality of the characters had Marvel Studios ultimately decide to kill off Pietro to avoid problems. Expounding upon reactions to the death, the assumptions had been by Marvel Studios were that Quicksilver would have been a minor death and his sacrifice would have been a lasting moment for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It naturally was, but in the time since, both casual and serious opinions on what could have been with relation to Pietro Maximoff as Quicksilver were that to be a massive waste of a character, and equally disappointing unexplored scope of character potential with the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the time in relation to Quicksilver. The actor that portrayed Quicksilver at the time, Aaron Taylor Johnson, when asked about his character's sudden and dramatic death in Age of Ultron, mentioned that he enjoyed playing the character and was somewhat disappointed with the minor screen time that he had in the movie, but knew his character's death had meaning. Marvel Studios later regretted killing off Quicksilver so soon and even so easily, as later on there were innovative directions and imaginings that the phases were taking in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe expressing and depicting various characters, with the unexpected popularity of Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, due in part to the acting and improvisations by Elizabeth Olsen. The circumstances of Quicksilver's death were so controversial that Pietro's situations, and even him as a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, were only mentioned or depicted a few times after the untimely death. It eventually became an aspect of humor that an Avenger's death was so intentionally and utterly ignored that it was even depicted and mentioned in WandaVision as another version of Quicksilver was seen for the series, and a reference to the character rights and even character disputes that Marvel Studios and 20th Century Fox had.